Explain it like I'm five.
Explain like I'm five has nothing to do with stealing crypto. It's a much more lighthearted topic. What are we covering today, Jen?
Okay. So you teach people how to invest successfully. So let's say they do everything you told them to. They've got all this money in investments and they're ready to retire. Let's hear today's question from our guest star, Mateo.
What is the 4% rule?
Thank you, Mateo. What is the 4% rule? If you don't know, Mateo is my 4-year-old. He's adorable. He's not 5, so I'm not sure this answer will make sense to him. But I did meet someone recently. Jen and I were at an event in LA, and a young woman came up to me. It feels weird to even call her a woman. She was like 18 or 19 girl, teen. And she said, I've been working my whole life and I don't want to work forever. And I did the old person thing like, oh my gosh, your life hasn't even started, yada, yada. But, to her credit, she was working hard. She'd been working from 13. She was making a lot of money now as an influencer, which is what, 19-year-olds do in LA, I guess. And what she's really asking is like, I have income. I don't want to be doing this forever. Like, can I live off of this somehow? And the answer is yes. And that's what the 4% rule is. And the 4% rule says, hey, if you take all this money, the savings from your income over the years, you're saving, investing. If that bank of investments grows big enough, you can take 4% of the starting amount. Let's say your investments grow to $1 million. 4% of that is $40,000. That means you can take $40,000 out every single year, even increasing it for inflation, and never really risk that $1 million running out. So you have $40,000 of infinite free income. And that's with $1 million. If you can live off of $40,000, that means $1 million is your number. If you need $80,000, then $2 million. If you need $100,000, $2.5 million, whatever it is. But the 4% rule is basically looking at the historical volatility, inflation, dividends, growth of stocks and bonds and figuring out how much can you safely pull from it every year. I like to think of the extremes. 1% would be too low. That's too safe because you could put 1% in a savings account and it would last 100 years, right? Even with some interest longer than that. So that's too conservative. No one's going to live 100 years past the time that they acquire this amount of money. So 1% is too low. 10%, which is the historical growth of the stock market, maybe that might make sense, except for if you start taking out 10% per year and then you have a bad few years of the stock market, you could get into a situation where you've taken out too much and then the original nest egg does deplete and then you're back into a bad situation. And so 4% kind of matches the gut check. It's somewhere between 1 too low, 10 too high. And then this thing called the Trinity study, which looked at, all these different decades and historical growth and volatility and yada, 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 basically came across 4%. Now the authors of the Trinity study are even saying that's a little bit too conservative. It's more like 4.5 or 4.6%. But, if the younger you are, the more reason you might not want to be pushing it because maybe the future isn't going to pan out like the past has. And so the 4% rule is a perfectly good rule of thumb to say, hey, this is when I can officially FIRE. Financial independence, retire early, FIRE. This is when I can live off my investments forever. So to that 19-year-old who said, hey, I don't want to work forever, you don't have to. You can get to a point where you're nest egg. If you keep saving, she was actually making a lot of money per month. She was living below her means. No names, no specifics, but she was putting away a lot, but just basically putting into a savings account. If you put into investment accounts, then you can live off the growth. And another cool thing that investments do is dividends. So right now, if you buy a total US stock market index fund, like VTI, it's paying about a 2% per year dividend. That means without selling any shares, it just is creating cash deposited automatically to your bank account. And so that's 2% of your 4% right there. And the other 2%, you just sell a few of the shares and the remainder of the shares will go up in value enough to never actually deplete. And so it's really nice position to be in. And if you can get your investments big enough to live by the 4% rule, you can live off your money forever.
I love it. Thank you so much. And it was really inspiring to see so many young people looking to invest and actually see their money grow. We were kind of expecting to be hanging out with a bunch of influencers who were just worried about buying Lamborghinis and Birkin bags, but they really wanted to know. They were curious. They also wanted to hang out with Jeremy, make videos with him. So it was fun and inspiring at the same time. So Thank
It
you
was a
for
small
answering.
crowd though, so maybe the Lamborghini salesman who's coming next week will have a packed audience, and we had
Bigger crew,
the spattering of money wise young investors who showed up.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, Mateo, hope that answers your question. Thank you again for calling in.